Russell Brand and Jordan Peterson just destroyed the woke censorship that is surrounding social media and everything. I mean, we've seen it with Sound of Freedom. We've seen it with a ton of other things recently, and it's been backfiring on the left much more than it has been benefiting the left before a very long time. And still to this day, it can hurt you very much, the woke censorship that we've seen on social media. Some of you might know that that censorship has actually hurt me personally quite a bit. So to see people like Russell Brand and Jordan Peterson, people with a big platform, still talking about the censorship that is going on social media and absolutely destroying it along the way is great to see. Let's check out what Russell Brand and Jordan Peterson have to say about this woke system that we're living in.
How do you feel now that you're operating in a space where some perspectives are censored on the basis that they are too right-wing? Some perspectives are censored on the basis that they are not medically sound. How can we have a framing where Donald Trump can be subject to these indictments, RFK, your video with RFK was taken down, where you can't speak freely about the events of the last 3 years, even when you're using as your basis demonstrable empirical facts? How are you going to continue to navigate this cancel culture and censorship when it appears that legislatively now significant moves are being made in the EU now to sort of penalise social media companies? You're aware of that, of course, and the Five Eyes nations introducing comparable legislation to impose further censorship. What kind of challenges do you envisage that we will face over the coming years, and how might we oppose them?
Well, I think that we keep doing what we're doing. You and I and a number of other people and people on a smaller scale, many people on a smaller scale, are trying to use whatever communication techniques they have accessible to them to stay one jump ahead of the people who would just as soon shut down free discourse. And it's possible as well that the free discourse that we're describing, fractious as though it may be and offensive as though it may sometimes become, is part of the mechanism by which we keep the parasitic predators under control. It's also part of the mechanism whereby we solve difficult problems without having to, engage in real conflict with one another. Difficult thought is the alternative to war. And that's definitely the case. Well, so what do? I try to find all the avenues I can to communicate. I try to keep the channels open.
And it's extremely hard to have actual difficult thought, to come to uncomfortable truths within yourself and, within discourse with other people whenever one side of the argument is just constantly censored. And the only alternative that we have is to go create other echo chambers away from the echo chamber that already exists with the existing woke social media. So the wokeness that is driving all the censorship on the existing social media platforms create platforms like Rumble that don't explicitly say that they're for right-wingers, but they're kind of like a refugee camp for people who have been banned by the woke social media platform. So it kind of turns into yet another echo chamber, and therefore you're still not having that difficult thought. You're still not having those difficult conversations with the other side. And like Jordan Peterson says here, it will eventually lead to war because both sides just get more and more radicalized as time goes on, and it's caused by this woke censorship. It has to stop. We have to continue to speak out. We have to continue to compel people like Jordan Peterson, like Russell Brand, and everyone else who has been speaking out against this. We have to continue that, because if we don't, like Jordan Peterson says here, each side will continue to be radicalized and leading to an eventual inevitable war.
Open. I try to stay on top of the changing social media environment so that I can dance ahead of the censors, let's say. And I tend also not to apologize for things I've said if I don't think they were wrong. And so far, there's reason for me to be optimistic, because people, the censorial types who are irritated at me, have been trying to take me out for 7 years, and none of it's been dreadful in some ways, but it hasn't been successful. In fact, I think quite the contrary. There's an injunction that in the Gospels that you should embrace your enemy. And what that means in part is even to regard enmity as an opportunity to dance with it, And there's some real truth in that if you can manage it. One of the things my family has learned that is if we are subject to a particularly grotesque attack, and I would say the most emblematic of those was the attempt to cast me as Red Skull in the Captain America comics. It's preposterous to the point of surreality, but we turned it into a productive joke. And that's part of that trickster mentality, I suppose, on the positive side. And all that happened were positive things. You know, it was stressful as hell when it first broke and unfolded, but
Yeah, but you can't get offended by the left's lunacy, man. You can't do that because then they win. All you have to do is, like Jordan Peterson did with that Red Skull incident, is just point out how ridiculous they are, how ridiculous they're being, how stupid everything that they are saying around that situation and around so many other situations truly are. And the best way to do that is by, one, either making fun of it like Jordan Peterson did, or whenever they're actually saying some harmful things to the general public, instead of just trying to attack one person, you can defeat their arguments with facts and logic, even though sometimes they say trust the science, and other times whenever the science opposes them, they say, you know, never mind the science is nonsense, it's just human-made, it's all man-made stuff, so it doesn't really matter. But those reasons are the reasons why they can be defeated with facts and logic, because if you just use the facts and logic against them, maybe their minds won't change, but some of the people who follow their minds, their thoughts, will end up changing. If they actually have logical thinking, if they actually have factual thinking brains and they value those things, then you can change people's minds. You might not change the original thought leaders' minds, but you will change the people who follow them's minds, and you will take their power away.
The longer term consequences were very positive. And so I think, Russell, I think we all could be secure in the knowledge that if we faced enmity with truth and with the true desire to aim up, that even the worst of adversarial situations could be transformed into something that would further the enterprise.
And that's something that Jordan Peterson's side, that's something that Russell Brand's side of things could actually say, you know, could actually believe, but the left will never believe that. These platforms that are run by wokeness, you know, I guess Twitter has gotten a little bit better, but, you know, the platform that we're on currently, Facebook, Instagram, all of those things are just run by wokeness, you know, anti-Christian, anti-American, all those things are pushed so hard. And if you're pro either of those things, they will censor you into oblivion. Whereas the right is kind of like, okay, you can have your opinions, or not even, I don't even want to say just the right. The other side, opposite of wokeness, are like, you can have your opinions, but I'm going to push back on them if I believe them to be blatantly false, which a lot of times they do believe that their beliefs are blatantly false. Whereas the woke side, the left side, are like, if I disagree with you, you are censored into oblivion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about this Russell Brand and Jordan Peterson clip here. It was a great interview. If you haven't checked out the entire thing, I highly recommend you going do that. Let me know what you thought about Jordan Peterson's thoughts and Russell Brand's thoughts on the whole woke censorship stuff and how to navigate it. Let me know what you're thinking in the comments about this whole situation.